We are a state agency and we are administratively attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. Our main projects are incubator centers here at the Manoa Innovation Center and also on Maui in Kihei at the Maui Research and Tech Center. We house R&D tech startup companies in the facilities as well as virtually. So we have about 17 to 18 in-house, about another similar 17 virtual tenants as well in our program. We help all of these companies with their business growth, with development programs such as these workshops and seminars that we'll be presenting today. And also we have federal programs that also assist with funding through our Small Business Innovation Research Grant programs, and also through manufacturing with our Manufacturing Extension Partnership programs that help companies with their prototyping, designing, and manufacturing. But today we're going to be talking about social media. Everybody's heard social media, everybody's heard Twitter, everybody's heard Facebook, but how do you really use it to get the word out about who you are, what the buzz is about you, and why they should be following you. Today we're very, very fortunate to have two really great social media gurus. One is Ms. Coomans of Akamai Marketing, and Ms. Kinoshita of Kinoshita Communications. And they'll be here to give you as much information as you can handle on how social media can help you and your company. So without further ado, Tara and I.
Those of you that are in the room and you recognize that we're holding a mic but you don't hear any sound, the reason we hold the mic is actually for the live stream. So I know it's a little confusing, but if you're having a hard time hearing me, which usually doesn't happen, but please let me know. I'm happy to speak up. If you have any questions, you're welcome to interrupt me, even during the presentation. Sometimes, you come up with a question, you don't want to wait till the end of it, so feel free to ask me a question. If it's something that I think requires a little bit longer answer, then I'll let you know that we'll answer it at the end of the sessions. So Laura and I are here today. We're actually going to take two little bit different approaches to relationship marketing and using social media. I'm going to talk to you about internal advocacy and utilizing employees as your, basically, a street team. It works for, it scales, okay? This concept, it scales. But the important thing to know is that when you're in the beginning stages of a company, some of the concepts that we're talking about are easier to implement when the company is a little bit smaller and a little bit more intimate, so that as the organization grows, it becomes easier. There's a concept right now playing out on the mainland called social business, and it's essentially transparency and authenticity. Well, these ideas are very consistent with social media, but they're very, very hard to implement once you get to be a very large company. It means changing systems, it means changing communication tools. So pay close attention to some of these pieces so that you can think about, as your company grows, how you can implement them and how it makes sense for you. So we all know that just by virtue of opening your doors or creating a product, that the business doesn't necessarily come. Right? That's why social media is of interest to all of us. And yet for small businesses, one of the biggest challenges isn't jumping on Twitter or jumping on Facebook. The biggest challenge is finding the time, right? So once you get into social media, you very quickly begin to say, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? And you can spend a lot of time developing a lot of different content for social media. I'm an advocate of that. There's nothing wrong with that. But for really, really small businesses, developing a lot of really intense content can be almost as difficult as running the business itself. So again, one of the reasons why this idea of utilizing employee advocacy is because your employees can help contribute through their own thought leadership to the company's presence. I love this quote because I hear this a lot. I do a lot of work with medium and small-sized businesses. I have a lot of conversations with app and business developers, and this is something I hear a lot. Now, we're really fortunate today that it is easier to market a product than it's ever been, but that doesn't mean that you can just ignore the reality, okay? You're going to have to participate in this process, And at the CEO level, you'll either need to personally participate or you'll need to personally set the tone so that others can do so consistently with the way that you like. So the idea of social business, as I said, is kind of moving through the mainland right now. But these are the 5 pieces that I think are most relevant to small businesses and also sort of the easiest to incorporate right now. Okay? Essentially what we're talking about is instead of one person being the star, instead of one person holding all the information, we're seeing the word democratization of these teams are more flat, information is more easily accessible. Now this is sometimes a little scary for business owners, right? We're saying, what are we really making accessible to our employees? Well, I mean, I'm an advocate of making anything accessible to an employee that can help them understand where the company's going and how they fit into that space, okay? So, for example, I think it's really helpful for employees to see the P&L. A lot of businesses kind of crunch up when they see that, you know, we have a very specific way of doing our P&L, and I understand why that's stressful. But the reason that that's important for your employees is so that they can see the trajectory that you're on, they can see the space that you're in, and they can also directly see their impact. So when you start talking about using employees and motivating employees to be advocates of your business, having them be part of that process and really invested and integrated into the success or failure of an organization is pretty key. When you're a business owner, you know this. You know that you stay up late at night because it matters to you. You come in early and you work on the weekends because you care. The way to get other people to care, maybe not quite as passionately as you, but care deeply and considerably, is to provide them with opportunities to understand their impact. When you are able to initiate this idea of employees who are very excited about where they work, very excited about what they do, then when you turn them, as I say, when you turn them out into the wild as advocates, they're the place where consumers first get to know the business. Okay, they're the people behind the product, the people behind the ideas, and that's a very easy way for your consumers, your customers, to get to know the organization. There's another reason why this is important. Because people aren't trusting traditional modes of communication anymore, right? Laura and I both have traditional communication and marketing backgrounds. We've been trained in this, but we also recognize that a press release doesn't have the authority that it used to have 30 years ago or 20 years ago, right? So because of this fact that employees are the place where people, that's where they see the credible information coming from. Once again, we're looking at ways to enable our employees to speak on behalf of the company. Also, this concept, I know, is counterintuitive to just about every single piece of marketing information that Laura and I have ever been taught, right? We've been taught we want to really control the message, we want to really make sure that it's exactly the way we wanted it, we want to have the opportunity to shape the way people see the company. But if we go back to the idea of authenticity, and we go back to the idea of making sure that everybody in the company is on the same page, then we don't have to worry so much about controlling and shaping the message, right? So, how do we do this? 5 simple steps. Get your house in order. What are we talking about? We're talking about getting your employees feedback immediately. Let's have a conversation with your employees about how they see the company, what they enjoy about the company, where they are, who they are, what kind of things do they share on social media currently? Where does work and the rest of their life intersect? For me on social media, my work is my social media. But that doesn't mean that I don't share a picture of my dog on occasion, because I do. It's something that I'm deeply in love with. And so most people are very, very good at translating these 2 pieces of work and personal, right? But there's probably opportunities for you. A lot of people do work, particular types of work, because it's what they're passionate about. It's where they want to be. So what are they reading that's interesting to them, that might be interesting to a potential customer? What are they reading about that might help the customer better understand the company? So we're going to start with the employees so that the employees are part of the process, okay? Another thing that I do think is critical is the communication piece. So, for example, you might have to share with your employees some, what we call shareables. We call them tweetables sometimes, but shareables, right? So we need a format to do that in. We need to be able to share information with them and let them know when some of that information is okay to be released. I have a friend that works for a major international search engine, and her identity is closely connected to this company. But what's really interesting, what I notice when as I follow her on all her social platforms, almost everything she shares has something to do with this company. Now this company, Google, is in a constant state of innovation. So there's lots to share. There's lots going on. But what's really interesting is she actually is able and empowered to share that information before it actually hits the press. So by following a Googler, I'm in the loop just about a day, a half a day, not 16 weeks, not, but just a little bit in advance of what I would be if I was just watching the news, TechCrunch, Mashable, whatever source I might be getting my information from. So, and she's very clear. Sometimes I will call her and say, so what's the inside scoop, my friend? And she knows exactly what she can say and what she can't say. There's a lot of information going on at a company that's in constant R&D that she's aware of but isn't allowed to share. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. That's not unauthentic. That's not giving access. What that's doing is actually empowering your employees to say, we're going to give you access to all kinds of information, but we're also going to let you know when it's okay to share it and when it's okay not to. And so that they're in the loop. They feel empowered. They understand what's happening to them. They understand what's happening to the company. When I finish today, I have a handout for you that a great tool that sort of facilitates this process, right, of employees being able to share with one another information that they think is relevant, that they might be sharing out on their own social platforms that other people can share, and then the company can say, here's something that you might consider utilizing. And again, this is something that you don't require staff people to do. You don't require team members to do. You present it as an opportunity. You present it as a privilege, really, right? And by doing that, again, you're incorporating their buy-in, you're making them more enthusiastic employees. This is sort of an oddball discussion because it's half social media and half employee motivation. But the thing about social media is that you're going to quickly learn, if you haven't already, is that it's all motivation, right? Just by simply sharing something on Facebook or on Twitter doesn't mean that anybody else shares it, tweets it, cares. Very quickly you start to think about, how do I get someone to care about this? And the essence of getting people to care about things is, what's in it for me? It's a little marketing 101, right? So we're talking about some internal marketing, essentially, so that we can empower a group of people to be our marketing team. You don't need one person, you need as many as you can get, right? One single source isn't enough anymore. How many of you are on Twitter? Okay, so if you're on Twitter, then you know that it's a fire hose of information. I follow roughly 6,500 people. There's no way that I can get every piece of information that every one of those people are sharing. But when pieces of information start to be shared consistently, then I start to see, okay, there's some interest level here. Maybe this really is something interesting. So how does that information get shared? It gets shared by more than one person, almost always, right? So again, I want you to consider this as an opportunity for your employees. I want your employees to consider it as an opportunity. And I want you to create guidelines that are extremely simple and easy to follow. For a lot of businesses, as they grow, there's this urge to create the employee handbook, right? And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you have this situation that happens, and so somebody says, we need to add that to the handbook. We got to address that issue. That's something we got to cut out at the head. The thing is that if you actually are able to articulate with your employees on what your values stand for, and who you are as a company, you actually don't need to spend a lot of time creating a scenario for every what if. You actually have the opportunity to empower them and say, these are the guidelines by which we make choices and we make decisions, and these are the values of our company. And by following these values, you'll never go wrong. Zappos does a really great job at this, and I included their, they call them family values. I included that in my handout. Again, I'll give it to you after the session is over. But essentially what they've done with these, it's a list of 10 things, right? It's things like deliver wow customer service, right? So think about this for just a minute. I'm on the phone, they have a huge customer service center. I'm on the phone, that person's yelling and screaming at me. I'm frustrated, I'm just a human being. But I always have to remember, if I just follow this one mantra, then not only will the customer be happy, but my boss will be happy. There's another one that I really love, which is pursue growth and learning, right? Your individual role in growing as a professional, growing as a human being, right? At Zappos, they consider growth and learning to be all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be business related per se. It might be, that would be great. But some of these concepts, the reason that they play into social media is that they also know how to speak on behalf of the company because they're very clear and they have a simple guideline. It's not that employee manual. They're a huge, huge company. They do not have an employee manual this big. They have 10 values. Okay, so it's very easy for people to follow, and it's also very easy for them to say to make clear-cut decisions. Were you or were you not acting in a manner consistent with our value system? That's really the question now, right? So by doing something like this, again, easier at the beginning than at the end. By doing something like this, you can actually streamline a lot of the other pieces of your business growth, which sort of happens in social media also. Social media rarely ends up being in just one division, one portion, right? In the very beginning days of social media, it was either the marketing department or the PR company or the PR department. Well, now all of a sudden we see that HR wants to get a piece of it, and product development is really interested in getting feedback from people, and so it doesn't stay in one office. So if we implement these concepts, not only can all the people who work for us now and in the future speak about the company on their own behalf to their own communities, but your internal systems are actually going to be a little bit more streamlined as well. So this is sort of a define your brand is a piece that I think is also very pivotal. A lot of small businesses have a very hard time doing this. You're really, really busy. And sitting down and spending a week and a half defining what your brand is, who it's for, what it's all about, is a really difficult process. But in essence, what we're really talking about is what do you stand for? Who are you? I used this picture because almost everybody has to have seen this movie, right? Yeah. If you've seen this movie, you're very clear on who this character is, okay? You know exactly what his ideals are. He has a very strong sense of right or wrong, right? This is essentially what you want your employees to understand. You want your employees to really know, what does your company stand for, right? What do you really love? What would you go to the North Wall for, right? You can actually ask yourself a series of 5 or 10 questions, and I like to do this in like 30 seconds. I like to do, what, above all else, what matters? Is it technology? Is it customer service? Is it innovation? Above all else, what do people need to understand about your company? Above all else, what is it that you have passion about, right? And your employees. And when you start talking about this with your employees, I think you're going to find that there's some crossover, and it's a really beautiful thing because then they can start to see how they've actually incorporated the brand into their own ideals and concepts already. This works for employees who are exhausted, and it works for employees who are not so exhausted. But I think that the idea is to make it very clear. Again, 10 points. Make it very clear to your employees, so that when they go out to speak on the company's behalf, they're very clear about the message. Now, I'm not saying that your employees are going to share everything that you tell them to share. I'm not even telling you that they're going to share it in the way you wish they would share it. They're going to put their own spin on it, and that's what makes it them. And that's what makes it authentic. And actually, that's the reason why 50% of people surveyed say they trust an employee more than they trust the Twitter handle that belongs to that company, or more than they trust the communication expert that belongs to that company. Because that person puts a spin on it that's their own, because they see it as a human and not as a corporation or a business, right? Another one of the pieces, and we've been talking a little bit about incorporating your employees in this process, but never forget that one of the great powers of social media is what you hear and what you listen, and the feedback that you get from people. I was just talking before the session today about an app that's going to hit the shelves sometime next week, maybe, right?
End of June.
End of June, okay.
I had some issues I had to take care of.
So, and you found out some of those issues because you got feedback, right?
Yes.
You talked to people, you said, what do you think? They gave you some ideas, right? So you as business owners, whether you're developing an app, you have a service that you like, that you provide, you have the opportunity here to ask for feedback from your customers and potential customers immediately. You no longer have to hold a focus group. Those focus groups that are $10,000 a piece, never mind. You can ask social media, you can test an idea, you can test a product. But when you ask for feedback, and this is the hardest piece, it's acting on it. It's being prepared to actually hear the type of feedback that you're getting. Once again, your employees play a pivotal role in this. People are more inclined to give feedback to people than they are to logos. That's just the way it is. So when you turn your employees out into the wild, into social media, and they come back to you and they say, you know, it's not that I heard this once. I've actually heard this a couple of times. This is what I'm hearing about how people are experiencing this. Then it's really time to start asking yourself, how do I manage that problem, right? It is a very tough job for a CEO to parse the junk from the real stuff, but unfortunately that is the job of the CEO, of the founder to do that. But when you ask for feedback, you must be prepared to take action when and if it's necessary. It's not enough just to take it. So ignore the loop at your peril, because people today, employees, consumers, are more and more willing than ever before to give you the feedback, but they truly do expect that you hear them. Not just listen, but you hear, right? So this is the maybe the scariest piece, which is actually empower them. Show them the way. It's like raising a child, right? How many of you are parents? I'm not a parent, but I have a Jack Russell Terrier. It's like a perpetual 3-year-old. But it's like raising a child, right? So you give them everything you think you can give them. You help them see the world the way you think that the world should be seen. And then you let them go down the slide by themselves. And you're just hoping they don't break their little arms or their little legs. Well, the same thing's gotta happen. So that's why we go back to these really simple, clear guidelines, what your brand stands for, who you are. Because you can always say to an employee, let's just make sure we're acting consistent with our value systems. And then you're not gonna have a problem, right? For some companies, the value systems might include profanity. Maybe that's perfectly cool. Maybe that's who their brand is, right? Great, how fun for them. Maybe for other companies, the message is, technology innovation, right? So we make sure that we're always talking about innovating, we're always staying on the cutting edge. And we're shaping the things that we share in that way. So when we empower these people, we have to give them a chance and an opportunity to sometimes stumble. But we can always bring it back to here's how we can shape it a little bit better. The beauty of this is that because your employees are speaking on their own accounts, on their own platforms, they're not speaking for the business officially. So there's less drama associated with when, the official account at a large company or a growing company says something maybe a little bit embarrassing. It's a little less embarrassing when the employee does that because they're acting on their own time. They're doing so on their own initiative, right? The problem with that is it becomes very hard you can't really control what someone says, right? So this is a really scary moment for a lot of businesses. But again, when we integrate the values and we integrate the brand well enough, then people won't violate that. They'll want to embrace it, right? And so then the last piece is when people start to really share things aggressively with their communities that are consistent with your business, you're going to find that some people emerge as leaders. Allow them to take the spotlight on the kitchen. Allow them to be the winner, the spokesperson at your company. Allow the leader, I mean, I think leaders are like unicorns. When you find one, you better get on that horse and ride it. So if you're lucky enough to have one in your organization, empower them, allow them to be a little bit of the spotlight. Really hard for us to do, founders to do, because we put in so much energy into the organization. But in the end, by doing this, again, you spread your message a little easier, you spread your message a little more seamlessly. In the end, what you find is you have people who become the digital face about a particular topic that's relevant for your business, and that only serves to help your business. So, I mean, we all know this is the potential of social media, so I want you just to consider how you can utilize, even if you only have a couple of employees, how you can encourage and excite them to speak on your behalf to their communities. If their communities are 100, if their communities are 10,000. This is the seeds for you to create consumer and customer advocates. This is the way that people are going to really get to know your brand and your company, and this is how your product, company, brand, whatever you want to call it, is going to become serious in their memory. Okay? So those are the 5 steps to employee advocacy. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
On Monday, Zynga laid off 18% of their workforce.
Yes.
And their ex-employees have been wild on social media.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like they're admitting that they do copy games and it's called a fast follow within their company. How would you deal with something like that where they're going to the extreme end of talking trash about their old employer?
I mean, obviously this is a problem for all businesses, right? I think when you go back to the expectation also for these family values, for example, that Zappos creates, is that the business also follows those same value systems, right? So when you're a company that's admittedly stealing other people's ideas, it's sort of hard to infuse a value-based culture, right? Your value is no longer innovating. Your value is now copying, right? So that's a tough thing to do. But remember, if you don't, as a company, if you're not authentic about the values that you espouse and you're not prepared to behave in a way consistent with those same things, then you're going to have this exact problem. People sniff this out very quickly, and by the way, consumers do usually also. I mean, so whether it's your employees going out into the wild, former employees, and saying, "Hey, this is junk. And by the way, I've been doing this. I'm not proud of it. Now I'm going to tell all of you about it." Instead, if the company was maybe following some of its own best practices, they probably wouldn't have that problem. People wouldn't feel so uncomfortable with them, right? So a lot of these problems that happen on social media where it blows up on social media actually isn't the problem. The problem really is, it has to do more with the organization, and social media is just the vehicle for people to find out, right? So, I mean, who saw the Taco Bell? There was a guy at a Taco Bell store, took a picture of himself like licking the Taco Bell shells, right? So, I mean, it's just horrifying. And, it's gross. But the problem is that the problem isn't that somebody took a picture of it. The problem is, how does somebody who works for a food company think that in any way, shape, or form that's funny or amusing or worth doing? That's really the problem. Social media is just the vehicle by which we all find out about it. So any other questions? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so Laura's going to switch over to her. We should let you.
But go ahead, take another question.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yes.
How can you tell if like a Facebook fan page has a bunch of paid followers?
Well, my first cue both on Facebook and on Twitter is checking a couple random of those followers and seeing how active they actually are, right? I also look for pictures that look like they might be stock photos, right? Those are 2 kind of giveaways. So when I go through and I look at who's following a particular company, and maybe I'll just do a quick random sample of 5 people, and I see this person is based in Bangladesh, they haven't posted in 16 years, and they have 2 friends, that's a paid follower.
So you can see that still, because that,
You
before
can
I
look-
could see the likes, but now I can't really see them.
Well, do you want me to give them the mic? Is that what you said? I'm sorry, I'm being instructed. Ask your question again.
I wanna know how I can tell if another
Company has.
company has paid followers on, paid likes on Facebook.
Okay, so and then you follow up the question with, you can see that information. You can see that information, you
But
gotta.
before you could click on the likes,
You
and then
click on
it
the
would show up,
likes.
but now you can still do that or what? Does it-
Yeah, I don't think that's changed
Yeah,
yet.
and there's a script also, if you Google it, you can run an automated script that it'll actually pull down all the profile information. And if, they're real profiles, watching TV shows and books from the region that the company is in, they're probably legit. But if they're from Russia and the Ukraine, or, they have one field, probably not legit.
Yeah,
Well, maybe I'll just,
yeah, go ahead, but he's got questions.
So what if your company has a lot of customers, but it doesn't have a lot of employees? How can you get your customers to buy in and
Is that a good segue? Okay, so,
start, multiplying social media?
oh, that is a good
Is that a good
segue,
segue?
I guess.
are you gonna talk about,
But not for a
advocacy?
while, so maybe just answer it now.
Okay, so that discussion of creating passionate brand advocates or product advocates is a great one. There's a whole nother discussion about that. I think Laura's gonna touch enabling them. I think Laura's gonna touch on it a little bit, but if we don't answer your question a little bit better, then we do have time at the end for some Q&A. So we'll make sure we get back to it. Okay, one last question.
It's more of a statement than a question. Oh, microphone.
Sorry.
One of the best books for what she spoke of with regards to core values and establishing core values for your company is Mastering the Rockefeller Habits.
Oh, yeah.
It's a short read about this long, and it's from a guy named Vern Harnish. And it is absolutely, I believe, mission critical. I have 15 years in the outsourced HR industry prior to starting my new business here. One of the very best things you can do for a small business is to establish those core values. And you mentioned the sniff test. We call it the Snicker test. If you're not living those core values, and great core values are really important. One of ours was clients are partners, meaning you don't want to do business with this person. Sometimes you have to because they're one of your largest customers. You have to live those core values and let that person go because they're not acting as a partner. If you can't live by those core values, or if you're not practicing them, then you're never going to pass this Snicker test, and you're going to have the problems that you alluded to with the employees that are out there doing whatever it is they do with the web and everybody else. So I just thought I'd share it with everybody in this room. It's a one-day read, Mastering Rockefeller Habits, and you'll come back to it many, many times if you happen to read that.
That's
Rockefeller? Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, yeah, Vern Harnish.
Great, thank you. All right, so I am, look, I got a typo on my first slide. This is gonna be a really high quality presentation, no, you're just human. So,
Humans make the slides.
yeah, I get wireless interference from my mouse, and I have a wireless keyboard and wireless mouse and my iPhone, so my keyboard does jump around a little bit. But anyway, I'm gonna go a little fast because I'm gonna try to keep this to 30 minutes so we have time for questions, yeah? Or thereabout, we'll see, yeah, Tara's already laughing. But to her point, I think we wanna say that if we prompt some ideas that you want to talk about, we are going to stay after. We just want to be sensitive to your time and let you get back to your busy days. So I'm going to give you like an appetizer of topics that I want you to be thinking about. But if you want to stay after or contact us, we would love to continue this discussion. We're both on Facebook, and this would make some really great content for discussion, conversation on social media. So I'll let you read through those slides. That's what I'm going to be going. Okay, so I'm going to start off with, just to clarify what we're talking about, relationship marketing, because it's really, you'll hear mobile marketing, social commerce, a lot of permutations. And I just want to give credit to this guy. For one moment, do you know that this book was published in 1999? 14 years ago? Is there anyone in this room who's under the age of like 27? You were 13 years old when this book came out. So I just wanted to, you know, and even before that, you know, for decades, their advertisers were talking about the purchase process. And so I just want to be cognizant that, you know, in 1999, it was just a few years after the first web browser, people were using Lotus Notes on email, right? So email was becoming the big thing. People were starting to see what technology was going to mean. And so it came out with this idea of permission marketing. Permission marketing. That you weren't going to have this mass media culture, you know, holding your captive audiences, interrupting their dinners, calling on the phone or knocking at your door, that you were going to have to say, you know, in the future, you were going to have to be invited in, okay? And so now in 2013, permission marketing has evolved to relationship marketing, has evolved to inbound marketing, has evolved to content marketing, social media marketing. It's all the same thing. So if you hear any one of those terms, they're all talking about aligning your marketing to the purchase process. So purchase process, awareness, okay? That's usually step one. If they don't know about you, they can't like you, they can't do business with you. Interest. Now that you've got the attention, this is what a lot of people miss out on. Okay, fine. Now you got their attention. Now they know about you. Well, what are you following it up with? Okay, so how are you going to make them interested? Once you've got their interest, how are you going to motivate or persuade them or convince them that your product or service or company is better than the one right next door? Okay, I suggest that you don't compete on price. So selection, decision, and then evaluation. Am I happy with this process? And so in inbound marketing, attract, convert, close, and delight. Now when I first saw this is from HubSpot. This is their spin on it, and you can find a lot of different spins. But when I saw delight, I said, oh, come on. You know, delight, it just seemed like so hokey, and I really didn't like it. But then last night actually, I was thinking, you know, what I wanted to share with you, and I said, how do you get others to talk about your business? And I thought back, when was the last time I shared something from a company? It was when I was delighted. It was when I was delighted, not just satisfied, not getting what I expected, but I was delighted. So if you want to get others talking about your business, it's not about breaking through. And I hear that a lot from startup companies. Oh, you know, we'll just go to a trade show, you know, we'll do marketing materials. It's really about being invited in. Invited in. So Tara talked about this on step one. I'm going to give you homework. And a lot of you have your iPads out. I want you to actually find time in your calendar in the next 3 weeks. And if it's on a weekend, fine. If it's not scheduled, it's not real. I want you to write a buyer persona, a real one. We walk around and you think that you have your idea of a customer, and your colleague in the next desk next to you might have a similar idea or a slightly different one. But when I talk to CEOs and VPs of finance and the top teams, and I get them to tell me who your customer is, even they don't agree. But they don't realize that they don't agree until everyone's talking and they see it on paper. And so here, you know, is like Cousin Claire, okay? This is a local family avatar. I talk about what her name is, her age, the school she went to, right? It's a character sheet, where she grew up, how many kids she has, how old the kids are, what she does for a living, what her husband does for a living. So this is a worksheet that it comes from, and this is page 1. And the first thing is the name. So I want you to give your characters I want you to know what their eye color is. I want you to know what their last name is. Because when you sit down and you say, what is the name of my ideal customer prospect? The one prospect that if they called you on the phone, they would be perfect for you. Yes, this is who my customer is. I want you to imagine one person, because when you have to come up with a last name, you're going to realize, is it Irish? Is it a Howley sounding name? Is it Japanese? Is it Filipino? And when you ask yourself these questions, you're going to be thinking to yourself, well, I don't know. Did they grow up here? Did they move here? Is it someone on the mainland? If they're on the mainland and it's on the East Coast and they're in DC, you know, is it going to be Irish? So what is their family of? And this will answer 80% of the marketing questions that you come up with. What color should our website be? What images should we have on our website? What should the headline be? What should the sub-headline be? 80% of your marketing questions can be answered by going back to your customer avatar, okay? When you fill out the sheet, this is the one magical thing that happens. When you fill out the sheet, page 2, what is the customer problem that your company solves? And what is the worst thing that's going to happen to your ideal customer if their problem doesn't get solved? The worst thing. What is their boss going to think? You know, what are their friends going to think? Are they going to feel shame? When you take the time to write this out, you will have the content and the copywriting for your sales pages, for your email, lead nurturing campaigns. The homepage for your magical content comes from this exercise. And I do page 1 to get you to know your avatar, so you have a character, but page 2, what is the best possible thing that could happen if you solve the problem for your customer? What is it that they really want more than anything else in the world? What is it that they really want? Not your product, not your service. You don't sell the hammer, you sell the hole, right? You sell the hole to hang a picture on. And that picture is going to be of their family. And you're going to be teaching, you know, intergenerational love for the grandparents. And so they're going to have an enriched life because they're going to walk by that painting every day and they're going to see their grandparents. You can't get to the value that people are going to share if you don't do this exercise. So I feel strongly about it because it's hard. It's not fun. You know, you get presented with a lot of, well, I don't knows. But working through those I don't knows is what separates the mediocre from the compelling. But what gets shared? So this is from Diffbot, which is a visual robot that looks at web pages and sees pages as humans do. You notice anything on this graphic? What gets shared? Images. We are humans first, always. Images. Images. Articles. Okay, so this is the articles is I want others to know that I'm influencing. I want to be an expert. Thought leadership. Videos. YouTube. Right. Product. Front page news. Status updates. And then the rest is under 2%. So what does that mean for you? You know, on social media, people are looking to have a good time. Okay? It's again, you're being invited in. People have a choice of what to consume, and we're living in the streaming economy. Timelines, things are scrolling back. You have less than half a second to make a compelling case for why your stuff is interesting. So this needs to be good news, delight, happy, right? Angry stuff doesn't get shared as much as good stuff does. Good news, you're happy, you're excited. Like a TV show, people want to be entertained. They want to laugh, you know. It's they're not on social media. It's their time. It's a personal choice. And so anything unusual, oh, I hit it twice. Is this the one where I said like fish bites man? Yeah. I like a site called Pop URLs. Popular, it's short for popular URLs, popurls.com. But it is one place where you can see everything on a daily basis that's like trending. What's the #1 thing on like the top, probably 1,000 sites on the web. And so you kind of want to get a feel for like the heartbeat of what's going on, because it changes. If there's a bombing, the whole news cycle is going to shift around that. If the Academy Awards are coming up, the content's going to shift around that. So, upcoming holidays are natural fits, but when there's a major news event that happens, put your sail to that wind, okay? If you can predict that people are going to be talking about it, and you can find the intersection between that topic and something about your business or your company or how you help someone, and you can show that alignment and you can get there first, you'll be shared more than if you're just operating in a silo. Food. These are the shortcuts. Chocolate. You asked me, it's true. Puppies. These are shortcuts, and they're kind of cheaters. Memes. Raise your hand if you've shared a meme in this room. Okay? And raise your hand if you have no idea what a meme is. So memes are like takes on popular culture, and oh man, and I guess they're like a way a community kind of coalesces around itself. Usually they're like funny takes on something popular that happened. You would have to see them to understand them. I don't know. Maybe you can do it better.
Usually one line accompanied by a graphic that makes you laugh, makes you evokes an emotional
So there's some
reaction.
popular ones like Willy Wonka or like the little baby, like success. Thank you, thank you. I am over 40, so.
Like what?
Hmm?
What was the last division? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Success kid, the little
Success
kid.
kid. So it's kind of like these, sad bear. There's, if you Google meme, you'll see a ton of them. But the reason they get shared is there's usually something like really intrinsically honest about it that many people can relate to, and there's just a shared, appreciation. And over time, that community kind of carries together with itself. And so once you see it, it's, you know all the other memes that came before it, and so this is sort of like a flock of birds kind of shifting. And so the reason I put that on there is it's a shared culture. And so if you're a company, what I would suggest is don't be talking about your company or your brand. It's more about the lifestyle or what you stand for or what you represent. Do you represent sustainability, energy efficiency? What are your core principles? And you build a culture around that. So for a positioning statement, I want to suggest that the 4 qualities of a good positioning statement are going to address 4 things. They're going to clearly and concisely say what your company is, who your customers are, the problem you solve, why you're different, and your competition. So if I said 5, so I must have repeated something. Customer, the problem you solve, why you're different, your competition. So this is what it looks like. And this isn't something that you share on social media per se. This is something that you develop so that you're clear in your mind who you are and what you're not, getting back to the point that was made earlier that you cannot be all things to all people. You're going to upset some people, but you are also going to attract others. And you're going to have your natural tribe that coalesces. So don't make apologies. And I think in Hawaii, this is hard for us. Cannot please everyone. You are going to have to take a stand and be clear about who you are, because if you don't stand for one thing, you're not going to stand for anything. And in social media, when you have half a second to make an impact, it's not enough. So what this would look like is you know, for those, and I'm using an example from a burger joint I worked with a few years ago. For those who want the freshest, best tasting burger in town, okay, that's the company defining who they are. Our company is a locally owned small business. So for this company, that was their unique positioning point. We're locally owned. Supporting family farms, unlike other burger joints. And this is where you define your competition. And you'll be surprised at kind of how hard this is. Unlike other mainland banks, unlike other national firms, unlike other, when you try to like categorize it, you'll appreciate this exercise. But unlike other burger joints, we use only locally sourced products and partner with local farms to bring greater sustainability to our island. That's the mission of the business. That's why they're in business. From here, you condense down how do you say that in 160 characters or less. But if you want a worksheet, you can Google product positioning statement. I get 30% of my traffic for this worksheet. So, you know, with the what's in it for me, what problem does your customer have? What strategy are you going to show that you're the best solution? So you have to, for 50 years, we were always like one-way directional messaging, but now you got to think like a publisher. What is going to attract your readership? So how are you going to attract attention? How are you going to share? You honestly can't answer these questions until you've done that by your avatar. It's going to be different depending on your market. Are you trying to influence like prime contractors in DC? You really need to get into the psychology of what their day-to-day life is. When they start the day, what do they read first, okay? So think like a publisher. Know very clearly who your ideal prospect is. And if it's another business or a government contractor, then you have to see what they're reading, what they care about, who they listen to, who they're linking to, who they're talking about. But this is the one thing that I think carries it well. I mean, I go on Twitter and I see these conversations that you would never have in real life. On the internet, you are hosting a party. I believe that you need to moderate your pages just the way you would moderate if you had 50 people come over to your house. You wouldn't just let them do whatever they wanted, because then it wouldn't be fun and all the good people would leave and you would just have the bad people. So, you know, similarly, you have to talk to people like they're real people, okay? So here's an example. I'm working with a payroll processing company and they offer pay-as-you-go workers' comp. How do you get paid as you go workers' comp shared on social media? I mean, right? And so again, you gotta look at that spectrum: awareness, interest, motivation. You're not gonna hit all 5 components with one thing. So in this campaign, the focus was awareness. We wanted to get keyword linking to the term workers' comp, and we wanted traffic coming from people searching for workers' comp. So we kind of proposed the question, how much workers' comp would Darth Vader get? It's funny. You can also go the useful route. 2013 saw a lot of changes in the tax code, and employers don't know what that means. Well, hey, here's a handy, fun sheet that you can download and put up on your wall, and it's useful. So when you're creating your content, I wanted to show you a template of a social media press release now. And even this template is a little dated, but hopefully for the press releases you do, and if you don't have your press releases as part of your marketing strategy, again, I want you to pull out your calendars, and I want you to make a commitment to do a press release a month. That will be of interest to your ideal buyer persona. But in addition to giving the headline at the top and the basic cool facts, I want you to be thinking, I want you to be providing short video clips. iPhone makes this so easy now. it's like what, like a 5 or 8 megapixel camera or something like that, and you just turn it on and make video. They don't have to be polished, to Tara's point. You want to be authentic. Audio, if you do video, then you automatically have the audio track. But see, what's happening now is a fragmentation of the audience, so that your ideal people, your ideal audiences, your partners, potential funders, they're not reading mass media. Okay, fine, we still have the nightly news, and there's still the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, but more and more, it's this fragmented media that you actually can get into if you provide the content. News moves very quickly. If you provide easily shareable information that is cut and paste, take the copyright off your websites. No, you do not want a copyright. You want it shared. Make it easy to cut and paste. Graphics, photos, MP3s, podcasts, videos, pre-approved quotes that they can cut and paste inside. A list of Twitter handles. And if your executives are not on Twitter, you have to get on Twitter. Okay? The RSS feed, and then, at the bottom, that's dating it. But if, just make content on your site easily shareable from every page. And if you have social buttons on your front page, don't just ask people to follow you on Facebook, tell them what they'll get if they follow. How will you delight them? How will you entertain them? So I'm going to give you an 8-step guide to writing your plan, okay? Everybody's going to come out in half an hour with a marketing plan, yes? So we talked about defining and differentiating your brand, okay? That means that you need to be able to describe what you do in 160 characters or less. Take out the jargon. Take out the foo-foo stuff. What are the 3 greatest strengths and weaknesses of your brand? I recommend that you ask some of your top customers for this, people who know you well. Ask them to say what were 5 adjectives that you would use to describe our company. The results will surprise you. You can also do this on social media. Similarly, I want you to be honest about your weaknesses. Social media is an amplifier. You should know what it's going to be amplifying, and you should also not be trying to be something you're not. Own your weaknesses. Try to improve them, but please just be honest about them. What keywords are people using to find you? Again, this goes back to really understanding their problems, not the problems you wish they had or what would be perfect if they had, but the actual traffic to your site. How do people get there? What pain are you taking away? What problems are you solving? How do you get that first purchase? Okay? And then if you're getting multiple purchases, why are you getting the second one? So this is a sample message framework. I like to lay it down at a glance. So at the top you have your positioning statement. From there you can develop your elevator message. You're writing in the not too many you're writing the elevator with someone. You got, 30 seconds. How do you spend that time? On social media, it's very similar. They're scrolling through. What's your headline going to be? If you could only say 5 words and they're going to make a judgment about whether they're going to click through or look further, what are you going to say? And then from there, you can drill down your audiences, okay? I recommend starting with 3. I wouldn't do more than 3, really. Get your 3 nailed down, and then you can go on from there. Have your proof points. So you're going to have your statements about statements that you want these customers to know about you, but what proof do you have? So hopefully you're going to realize that you're going to need testimonials, reviews, case studies. Again, schedule it on your calendar. I'm not kidding. You won't get people talking about your business if you do not have examples of how you do it. So I'm going to briefly talk about a content-driven website. We're in 2013. We're moving to the cloud. Everything is indexable and searchable by Google, and there's greater consolidation. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Yelp, the in-car nav systems, location. It's all database driven and it's all merging. So for you, that means your website needs to be indexable, understood by search engines. You need to understand how search engines see your site. So your challenge is understandable by a search engine, but also by humans. And I threw this in here last night because if you want other people to talk about your business, start with the search engines. Let the automated systems out there do some talking for you. If you're getting good reviews, how are you getting those find? So no custom HTML Dreamweaver code that you learned in 1999. No legacy stuff. Go with HTML5 compliant themes and processes. Go with best practices. Spend the money now because this is your digital home on the web. It's probably more important than your actual office space in terms of legacy and where you're going to be in 5 years. So build your foundation right the first time. Okay? And so again, copywriting, and when you're doing your buyer persona and you're finding the problems, have that content on your homepage. Goals. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. What does success look like? And make sure that there's agreement in your organization about what success looks like. And so this is an example from, from your goals. You want very specific objectives. And so just to give you an idea of what objectives in my plan look like, increase website traffic from companies with 50 to 500 employees located in Orange County by 45%. Not our traffic goes up, because I can make your traffic go up. Improve website performance and its ability to generate new inbound links. That means visitor to lead conversion rates are 2% or more. Your landing page conversion rates are 18% or more. Your keywords are ranked in the top 10. You have 200 or more first page search impressions. Not just general statements about, oh, we get more downloads. Oh, we get more conversions. So, be very, very specific. Step 5, build an integrated campaign fueled by search marketing, okay, for the search engines, also content marketing, but traditional marketing, depending on your industry, you may need traditional marketing. Your buyer might read, certain trade magazines, and you need to do print display. If you're a visitor destination site in Hawaii, you need to be in the visitor hubs. So it's traditional marketing, it's public relations, and social. When you do that buyer persona, it's naturally going to come to you what these sites are that they're looking at and where they're going and what shows they're going to. And you will have more ideas than you can possibly implement. But going to the lean startup that Tara was talking about, dynamic budgets that can shift based on performance and results, okay? So do a campaign, let it run for 3 months or something, look at your analytics, and find out fast what's working or not, so that you can kill it if it's not working. If it's sort of working, test. Always be testing. Well, what if we say get this thing instead of download this thing? Does it do better if we say download versus get? Always be looking at the language you're using. Step 7, define your timelines, tasks, and responsibilities. Actually assign a specific human being who's going to do what by when and hold them accountable. Again, social media, this is a kind of a new thing. It's new, people haven't done it, it's a new way of working. If it doesn't get measured, if it's not accountable, it won't get done. This is the very easy thing of like, oh, I'll do it after this thing. So if it's important or you decide it's important, really assign someone responsible and hold them accountable on a weekly basis to the metrics. which is measure everything. Measure everything. So this is a game plan template I use. Link your projects to the audiences and metrics that matter for your business. So going from the software world, you can think of these as epics. And for every epic or marketing project, you're going to have who's in charge, who this is intended for, right? Maybe it's a high-end buyer, and if you're targeting the high-end buyer, then you're going to have certain metrics that hold you accountable. And you can, from this spreadsheet, if you want to copy, I say at the bottom, tweet me. And again, I am pushing you on Twitter. My handle is Kinoshita. If you tweet me, I will send you the spreadsheet. When you know what you're going for, this is a dashboard I use. I kind of had to break it up into 2 segments to make it fit on this page. But the blue is getting found, right? I like to say typically businesses, they either want to get found or they want more business, visibility or sales. So the blue is visibility metrics and the peach is sales. So, I do a baseline starting situation, look at it 3 months, look at it 5 months. What's in the boxes is going to change based on your company. But you're looking at, with social media especially, it's not going to be a one-to-one thing. It's going to be a logic model. Are you familiar with that term, logic model? That you're going to have outputs, press releases and tweets and retweets and outputs. But those are going to drive out growth. Well, what happens as a result of that? Well, somebody heard about us and then, we got invited to talk and, we shared some information. That's an outgrowth. And then, but what's your outcome? Oh, we got asked to, work on a piece of business and we made a sale, right? So can I say that that link directly attributed to that sale? Very difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. But you can say, if we want these outcomes, what logically needs to happen? And you build it, and then you trace it back. And so that's what this spreadsheet does, get found. Well, what does getting found look like? Well, it's, how many referral traffic do you have compared to your direct traffic, compared to your paid traffic versus your social media traffic. I'm finding that social media traffic converts at 5 times the rate of paid traffic, so that's a really good investment of time.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, let me give you the mic so the live stream.
Real quick, the metrics are great. When we're looking at the metrics 3 months down, do you put more energy and resources into ones that are succeeding or ones that are less than desirable? So if the different channels are working,
If it works, you keep doing it, and if
do you
it's
keep
not working,
putting
you stop.
more of our resources into that, or do we target the ones that were not effective?
I typically look at it where, in my practice, if something is working really well, I'm really happy with it. And in my logic model, if I'm hitting my goals, so I know that if I get 1% of the traffic is going to opt in, and I know my sales team can convert at 20% rate, I'm good. I'm going to hit my revenue targets. So if I hit my goal, I'm great. Whatever got that is working. So I do spend time in my practice looking at things that are borderline or they're not reaching their target. I really do spend a lot of time. There's a lot of data to be had, but not very many people can read the data. And what I would say is know why it's working. Don't just take that it's working as, its own thing. For example, in 1 month I had 542 visits come from Yahoo for a keyword term on 1 day. 1 day, Yahoo sent 542 people to a site on 1 keyword. Was it real or not real? I don't know. But that traffic spiked, right? I got like triple traffic that month. And so if I had just said, oh, scratch that one off the list, we got awesome traffic, but so I had to go back and say like, well, why? And then when I saw why, I wasn't surprised when the next month my traffic went back down to where it was. So understand why it's working and why it's not working. But I do focus on understanding why. Sometimes things that aren't working, if you understand why they're not working, you can make the choice to just cut it out and stop spending money on it, because it's not working. And you did, if you know that you did it the best possible way that you could, maybe your energy is spent. But I will say, I did that for my business. I looked at everything I did in a year for getting new business leads and how much time I was spending on each activity, and I made the decision that I was, for my email newsletter, I was spending a lot of time and I didn't get any business from it. In 1 year, I didn't get any business from it, so I'm not going to do the newsletter anymore. I'm going to do something else. Well, I ended up getting 2 pieces of business 6 months after I made that decision from people who kept my email and said, I was on your mailing list and I want to work with you, And so sometimes things appear that they're not working, but they were, right? So those are the numbers that the CFOs need to see and that your grant writers need to see, the numbers. But I also just want to say that in social media there's a lot of intangibles that you can't really measure, And this is sort of the sum is greater than the whole of its parts. So you need to know what success looks like, keeping in mind the whole process. It's not just sales, it's not just interest, but it's evaluation, right? What are you doing to help persuade a decision one side or the other? It's about building a community, a real community of fans, and giving them the tools and encouragement that they need to see to talk. So if you have a Facebook page and someone does say something nice, let that go acknowledged. So Tara and I have been working with Honolulu Police Department, and you can imagine on a police department Facebook page what you get. And they're held to a higher standard because they're a public agency, right? So also, to the point where you do stories of Zynga, please read that story, because as startups, some awesome lessons that can be learned about getting lost in the data. But the point is you can incentivize the behavior you want to see by rewarding and acknowledging and appreciating people. So if there's bad news about Zynga, if I was Zynga, my strategy would be what awesome thing can I say that's going to make people forget about our layoffs, and what awesome thing can I do as a company? Unfortunately, it sounds like that the company is suffering from some internal rot, and they might not have the ability to do that, but that's how it is done. You come out with a better story or something more interesting for people to talk about. So for your community here, if you have detractor, reward the people who are supporting, and then others will see that rewarding gets acknowledged and appreciated, and it will create a virtuous upward spiral. And ignore or encourage the people to contact you offline for the other steps. So in closing, what is relationship marketing? Relationship marketing is two-way and interactive. It's a real conversation. It's being invited in and providing the content that your community needs to see, or they need, or they're desperate to have. The bar for this is getting really high. I suggest you think in terms of kits rather than one-off solutions. Video, FAQ, glossary, a spreadsheet that you can download, a calculator, and if you give our email, you get this whole package, right? Just saying oh, give us your email, we'll give you this one-page sheet. No, that's not working anymore. Or if you get the same questions over and over again, click here and we'll send you a 7-part series on how you can solve this, real problem. and then they get a 7 series. So you are providing value, you are emphasizing what's in it for them. Did you notice how well, I'm sure you didn't notice, on the second slide, I said, here's what you'll learn today. You'll learn, here's what you'll learn today. Not what I'm teaching, not here's the agenda, here's what you'll learn. And entertain and educate, you know? Because you have to break through the clutter. So that's my last slide. We wanted to share time because there's a lot of good discussion. I think Tara and I all want to hear some of the common challenges you're facing. Facebook is really easy to set up. Twitter is, so I think a lot of us have gotten going on there, but you know, how are you managing that? Who do you assign to do it? I think we would both really like to turn it back to you now and have you tell us if you're only like a business of 1 or 2, how are you finding the time to do these things, and how are you marketing your business?
I'm interested in memes. What are your favorite meme sites?
Oh gosh, I just go Reddit, to be honest with you. I just on Reddit. It's actually my bedtime reading. Like right before I go to bed, I just like look at what the top 10 or 12 stories on Reddit are, and it's usually, you know, they're upvoted, so it's usually the community. Yeah, I don't know if that helps or not. What are yours?
I've been on knowyourmeme.com, but I'm always searching for new ones, so just interested. Tara, if you have any recommendations.
Oh, man. I watch what flies past me on Facebook, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't even proactively go look for them. They follow me everywhere I go. So I like something that's a little sassier. So there's some great ones that come out of the Some Cards, website, Some Cards, some e-cards, some great ones that come out of there. They're usually not really necessarily business, although those businesses that are able to use those kinds of memes to touch base with their consumers in a real way and really tap into something that either frustrates customers or makes them excited or passionate. I mean, that's the potential to memes for me. So
I'll say though, I should at least know the name of my memes, but like the overly attached girlfriend, was always a favorite. There was one actually that I was going to use in this session, except I don't know the name of it, but it's sort of a couple one, but it was like goes, the top headline was goes on the first date, and then, she's talking about having children right away. And I thought that was like really a good one for this, because a lot of times I go into businesses with a social media budget, and they're saying like, well, when do we get the customer? The customer is the wife and kids. You really have to get to know your community and make it easy and encourage your community to know each other. So so Tara asked us about the Twitter, but who is like active on Twitter? Like raise your hands up high so I can at least see, because I want to do like a number. I want to do a survey. So we have a representative sample of Hawaii's startups. 3, 4. Is that the official number? Really?
I think Hawaii's more known for Facebook users than Twitter, as I understand.
We're in Honolulu, folks, too. We are one of the, top 15 digitally connected cities in the nation?
Yeah, actually,
2, 4,
this
6,
is
8, 10,
an
12,
unusual,
14, 16, 18, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8. So we have like 10%. Well, actually, that statistically sounds good.
How many of you guys are solopreneurs? How many of you guys are solopreneurs? Raise your hand higher. Solopreneurs. Yeah, that's
2, 4, 6. Okay. Well, actually, 10% of a population is statistically like in Twitter. But for those on Twitter, they are more likely to have a blog and be publishing and be thought leaders and influence the media. So even though it's not a large number, it is influence. So biggest marketing challenge.
So what makes something viral, And can it be replicated?
Well, there's a recipe on Reddit. No, I'm kidding.
This is what I'll say. I think it's like a TV show. You have to have the right cast. The question was, what makes something go viral and can it be replicated? And my opinion on that is like a TV show. What makes a hot TV show? It's the right cast of characters. It's the right storyline, but it's also the right time.
Yeah.
You can have if you put All in the Family on TV today, it would not work. And Amazon is about to launch delivery-based grocery services. Hi, anyone remember that from like 1998? Right? And so I think, and then timing, it's such a compelling image, like at New Year's Eve, New York Times Square is packed with people. And this is a really important point, so please write this down. Timing is essential. 2 minutes before midnight on New Year's Eve, everybody's got to be on Times Square. It's like the happening place for New Year's Eve. 5 minutes after midnight, gone.
Fully charged.
You know, you see like the newscaster and they got the window and it's like trash blowing behind them and people are gone. And it works like that on the internet as well. If you are there at the right time, bomb just went off, or the Queen is coming to visit, we know President Obama is going to come to Hawaii for Christmas. Hey, guess what's going to be popular in the news come Christmas time, right? If you can hit that time and kind of just, so that's why I think tapping into the culture. So you tap into the culture with that zinger. Remember like Charlie Sheen, Tiger Blood? It's funny. It was like, you know, it just had the je ne sais quoi, right?
Laura, let me add something to that. The other piece to timing, which I mean is so true, and I tell people it's tapping into the zeitgeist, right? So what's hot at this exact moment, which is really hard to create content that quickly and that fast. So secondarily to that,
Oreo.
right? Secondarily to that is emotion. I mean, you really have to think, and this is really relationship marketing 101. You really have to think, who is going to think this is funny? How many of them are out there? And why would they share it? I mean, if you can't answer that question, if you look at something and you say, it's not funny. It's not funny then. If you can't even laugh at it, it's not funny. The problem with this stuff is that we overthink it. Some of the quickest, most viral things happen, you know, Tiger Blood, to use your example. I mean, I guarantee you that just popped out of his mouth. He didn't sit around and say, what catchphrase can I come up with today? That was a moment in time. He was having an epic meltdown. The entire world was looking at Charlie Sheen for the first time in his life. And, you know, he just capitalized on it. So we have to think about the emotion, you know, that what it was about that was shock.
And can you
It was
also
like, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy.
talk about Old Spice and how they had a process that enabled fast development? So, you know the Old Spice guy? It was like Procter & Gamble, I think it was Procter & Gamble. They had one of the most successful marketing campaigns, and it was the Old Spice guy, like I'm in, you know. The reason that worked was they had a process that they trusted their marketing team, and this happens over time, it's not overnight, but they trusted their marketing team enough where they could develop videos. They would get requests from Facebook, you know, what do you want to ask Old Spice guy? And in real time, they would do these clips that were like no more than a minute long, and they would publish them, and they were hilarious. But you had to have incredible trust. You know, Procter & Gamble, this national brand that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, they were publishing videos that were being viral in real time, and that never would have happened if they were not allowed to have that creative freedom.
I'm gonna say one more thing about viral, because I just wrote a blog post on this a couple months ago, and I called it the viral virus. The only reason to create content is not that it's gonna go viral, right? So, I mean, content that doesn't go viral isn't in and of itself worthless content. Evergreen content, stuff that sits on your website, 30% of your traffic,
from product.
okay? Not viral, but successful, okay? So let's remember that, I mean, viral's great, viral's fun. I mean, obviously, it's exciting, but it's exciting because it's not happening a lot for brands, to be honest with you. Most viral pieces are consumer created, and they touch on the consumer in some way that brands just don't allow themselves to go that deep into emotion. They can try.
It happens.
It does happen.
Like
but
the Oreo thing. I thought
the
it was
Oreo, yeah, the Oreo during the Super Bowl, right? I mean, do you guys know what we're talking about? Okay, so Super Bowl, lights go
Do you remember
out.
that the lights went out in the middle of Super Bowl?
Lights go out
For
during the
half
Super
hour?
Bowl. Everybody's
No
waiting.
power?
What,
No
Mike?
power.
I heard of them.
What, Mike? Okay. Everybody's waiting, and Oreo sends out a tweet that says, with a picture that says something like, while you're sitting in the dark, you know, dunk your Oreo into milk or something. I mean, just, you know, of the moment, really, and you know, it was much more clever than I'm making it
You can
sound.
still dunk in the dark.
Dunk it, you can still dunk in the dark. Thank you, Len. You can still dunk in the dark. So, I mean, of the moment, super quick.
And they got it out in less than 20 minutes.
Yeah, they got it out before the lights came back on. I mean, marketing campaigns today can happen at that lightning pace, but they require, believe it or not, a tremendous amount of planning. That wasn't the Oreo cookie thing didn't happen because the CEO called somebody who called someone else who called someone else who called someone else.
No.
Right? That happened because there was a team of people sitting together waiting for the lights to come back on, and somebody said, this is what we should do. And they did it. They didn't run it through 17 layers. Now this is the advantage for you guys that are small businesses. You're more dynamic, you're more flexible. You don't have 17 layers, praise God. But when you have an idea, act on it, go with it, take the risk a little bit. That wasn't even so much a risk as much as it was an opportunity. When the opportunity exists, go with it. That's the biggest advantage you have in social, relationship marketing, period, end of story, is that you're dynamic. That you don't have to go through all that.
Okay, so if you guys are on Twitter, Facebook, whatever else, what is your process that you're using for content? How much of it are you doing as a scheduled thing? How much are you doing just off the cuff? And then what are you using as software to manage that? Are you using something that is aggregating everything in, or are you actually doing each piece and doing it?
We both have different, I believe strongly that every platform is different, you have to treat it differently. Instagram is different than Pinterest, is different than Facebook, is different than Twitter. And I know it's hard, but I advocate original content per platform. I have a 80-20 rule. My business model is I like to be a curator of content. I create a weekly blog on Fridays that I publish. I supplement that out with content that I respect and resources that are good for my community. I will pre-schedule that out on Hootsuite, which is my #1 tool. I also use HubSpot. And then I try to be on Twitter daily, but sometimes when the deadlines get going, I will be gone for 3 days. I apologize. But then it's very important for me to supplement my structure with like daily what's going on here. You know, like Derek just flew in, hey, let's go grab wings, which
So
we still
your
have to
Hootsuite
do.
and your HubSpot are used to deal with which platform?
All of them.
And when do you use Hootsuite, when are you using HubSpot?
Oh, I use HubSpot for my blogging platform. HubSpot and Hootsuite have a joint partnership, but I like Hootsuite's native tools. It has a little bit more flexibility and features. The thing that I run into trouble with is Yelp and TripAdvisor and Urban Spoon and Google Plus sometimes. And I don't like the way I don't like the way Hootsuite auto posts to Facebook. On Facebook, I like to post a picture and then do a link and do my comment because the picture will appear bigger on Facebook and those perform better. So, you know, so I think it's important to be inside the tool as much as possible, but it all takes time, so you have to make a trade-off.
And your blog software is on?
HubSpot.
It's
Oh, and WordPress. I use them together.
We pretty much, I use HubSpot, I use Hootsuite. I use Hootsuite as my listening tool for the same reason that Laura doesn't like to post from Hootsuite. I generally don't post from Hootsuite except to Twitter because find that doing it is more natively, it's better natively. It's less junky looking, it's easier for people to read. I also curate heavily. I start my day, I spend about 45 minutes in the morning with my cup of coffee reading, all business related stuff in the morning. Yeah, and so inevitably my email is filled with all kinds of interesting articles. I run through those. I share what I think is most relevant to my community. I tuck away what I need to use for the future. But I spend my day, that's how my brain gets going. So I end up scheduling all this out. I schedule it out so that I don't blast everybody all at once. I just read this article, I just read this article, I just read this article. I do consider my communities on each platform.
You mean you set up a queue?
Yeah, I schedule
And you
it.
do multiple per day or
And
something?
you also
Yeah.
think through your week.
Yep.
Like, I'm gonna be talking at HTDC, or we're gonna be talking about customer service, so, I try to think about like where I'm gonna be on certain days and what's gonna like fit my topics.
So you guys can do the same thing, I guess is what we're saying, is that, I'm gonna guess that almost every single person in this room spends a fair amount of time doing some reading, business-related reading, specific to growing your business, to being a business owner, to what you do. So I highly recommend that you consider how your customers might appreciate some of that information, or how you can turn some of that information into what would be relevant for your customers. Also, what you share says something about you. It's an exercise in branding.